Good afternoon and welcome to now 30 plus programs of the COVID313 Community Coalition for Families and Youth. And we are here now, just literally days away from one of the most incredibly important elections that certainly most of us have seen in our lifetime, and if not indeed in the country, because we are in fact in unprecedented as well as uncertain times with this COVID. Welcome, and my name is Jametta Lilly, and I am blessed to serve as the CEO of the Detroit Parent Network. I am also one of those women from Michigan, and I am a proud member of this coalition that now for months has continued to bring you expert voices to love on you with support and information and knowledge, because we know that knowledge is power and we need to be about exercising our power. And so today's program is really about making sure that we hear from critical voices, both in terms of government. We're so excited. The mayor is going to join us. Mayor Duggan will be with us. We're going to hear from one of our top pediatricians in the state, Dr. Herman Gray. We're also going to hear the voice of one of the most profound and important civil rights groups that's working with us consistently around our vote, and that's the ACLU. And because we've been celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, we're continuing that a little bit too by lifting up more food and culture of Hispanics as well as the Latino communities. So get comfortable, get ready, and remember, we want to hear from you. Knowledge is power, but we build that power by exchange of ideas, questions, and information. So if you have a question, please make sure you can put that into the Facebook chat. You can also text us at 313-288-2082. Please make sure that you want to get your information into us, because we have some powerful voices and we want to hear the power of your voice as well. And so I'm delighted as always to have part of the program and to be co-moderating with my colleague and friend and comrade in this work to keep us sane and healthy and strong in COVID. Christine Bell.
Thanks, Jametta. You have described all the things I am not today.
Well, put on that smile.
Right. But that said, I so enjoy being here every week with you, Jametta, and with the folks that are listening, and always with our panelists. I learn so much. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this coalition. Again, I'm Christine Bell. I have 3 children that you may end up hearing in the background because all 3 are not feeling super great today. But I'm also I really humbly serve as the executive director of Urban Neighborhood Initiatives. As always, our town hall is going to be translated today, and it will be translated into Spanish and interpreted into ASL. And so Christina is on the line right now. And so Christina, can you please share with the audience the telephone number if they need Spanish translation?
Traducción en español. Si necesitas traducción en español, por favor llama al 313-626-7440. Hoy la señora Gloria Rosas y su servidora Cristina Ruiz Mazón harán la traducción. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for being with us again this week. And we've got Julie that is now going to share with you the instructions for ASL. Julie? Thank you so much, Julie. And like Jametta said, we want to hear from you. This is as much your time as it is the time of our experts. So please, if you have a comment or a question for one of our guests, please put it in the Facebook. We've got moderators there that are pulling them off Facebook and texting them to me, or you can text them directly to 313-288-2082. Again, that number is 313-288-2082. We've got an amazing 60 minutes for you, so please stay with us so that you can be informed and powerful in this moment, which we all need. And just a reminder, there will be a question and answer segment after each of the segments. And if we can't answer your question today, we're committed to getting the answers to you by early next week. And we'll post all of the questions asked today, as well as the answers, on onedetroitpbs.org and also on their Facebook page. For our experts that are on today, our panelists, please remember to speak slowly for our translators. They want to make sure that they are translating the important information that you are sharing correctly. Also, please turn off your cameras when you are not speaking so that we can make sure that our ASL interpreters can be seen. And also remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking. Terry Whitfield is our fantastic timekeeper. So we also want to remind you to keep your eye on the chat. He will chat you your remaining time. If you're getting close to going over your time, one of us, Jametta or I, will turn on our camera and gently remind you to wrap it up. And I have the pleasure of introducing Arlisa Hurd, who is with us again today to bring the fire and inspiration that she does every week. And so Arlisa, please kick us off today. Yes. So it looks like Arlisa is not on. So we are going to move on to our first guest, and I am going to then hand this over to Jametta so she can introduce our first guest. Jametta.
And in some ways, our first guest almost doesn't need to be introduced because certainly, as people can see, we are blessed and delighted to have our own mayor, Mayor Duggan, to join us. Mayor, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And please know that there are, in fact, thousands of families that tune in every week to listen to us. And we are so delighted to have you as part of the program. And I know there's a bevy of topics that you'd like to share with us, but I'd like to open it up for you to try to make some of the comments and share information that you would like to make sure that the citizens of Detroit and friends of Detroit can hear. Please proceed.
Well, the first thing I'd start with is what's at top of mind for all of us, and that's COVID. Our health director, Denise Fair, and I shared statistics yesterday that are really amazing. We have a 2% infection rate in the city of Detroit. Basically, 1 out of 50 Detroiters today is probably positive. But in Oakland County, it's 4%. In Macomb County, it's 7%. In Grand Rapids, the Upper Peninsula, it's 6%. That is, Detroit has far and away the lowest COVID infection rate in the country. And that is a far cry from what was going on last March and April when we got slammed overnight. And the commitment of this community to social distancing, to wearing the mask, the great job the health department's done at making sure that the bars and the restaurants follow the rules has been great. But we are trending up, and it showed yesterday we went from 40 people being hospitalized a couple of weeks ago to 60 today. Now we had 1,000 in April, so it's not terrible, but the trend line is concerning. And so I know your group has done a great job of advocacy on this, and we need to be vigilant. And we're going to have some really hard conversations. Halloween, if it's done right, is not particularly troublesome. If people are outdoors, if those who do choose to give out candy put tables on their front porch and space the candy out so that the children are only touching their own candy, that can work. It's going to be a harder conversation with Thanksgiving when you're indoors and that air is circulating, particularly, and I know in my family, my 85-year-old mother, we're not going to be able to go to her house for Thanksgiving dinner. We're probably going to go someplace where my brothers and I space out, because we're not going to have her be without Thanksgiving, but she'd like to be with the 18 grandkids all gathered around one big table. This is going to be a hard thing. And we're going to need the folks here to be reinforcing the message that the first rule of family is protect your family members. I think this is going to go on for another 4 or 5 months. If we keep doing what we've done, Detroiters are going to come through this healthy. And probably the thing I'm happiest about is we opened up the auto plants, we opened up the restaurants, we've opened up the gyms, we've opened up the shops, and we're not seeing spread at any of those businesses. The business owners and the customers, by and large, in the city have done great. Our spread is occurring when people are gathering together after work and on the weekends. I just had an issue with some city staff that I wasn't very happy about, but it turned out it had nothing to do with the office. It had to do with socializing together in the evening. And we just got to keep reinforcing this message. We got to keep these businesses open. But if we're going to be able to do that, we don't want the governor coming in here and shutting everything down in a month or two. We have to keep our discipline. So thank you for your role on that. With that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, thank you. And as our questions are coming in, just want to thank you for, again, making the point that Detroit has done a magnificent job of standing up to the challenge because we were absolutely slammed. And I think, and we hope and pray that that experience is sticking in our minds. So let's go to questions. Christine, do we have any? And it seems like we're having some slowdowns in our, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, it just took me a minute to get off mute. So there has been some questions about how so you mentioned trick or treating, you mentioned our infection rate. Is there anything that the city has planned for small businesses to help them get through the winter? As you know, we all are hopeful that there's not going to be a second wave, but I think in reality that's not our reality. So is there something, Mayor Duggan, that you all have planned for small businesses to help them get through the winter as it relates to COVID?
The Detroit Economic Growth Corporation with this Detroit Means Business initiative has been great. And Warren Evans on the Wayne County side has been great. So we've done several $1 million in grants and loans. Of course, the feds did what was a very good program, the Paycheck Protection Program, which got facilitated. We are, I think, this weekend sending out another round of packages of personal protective equipment to the small businesses. And we are looking at can we get another round of support done? We're watching closely with, it's ridiculous what's going on in Washington.
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi and Trump are in agreement about 80% of what they want. Why they can't get to a deal is very aggravating. But a lot of we got private donations on the early business assistance. Lots of people got $5,000 and $7,000 grants, helped to make some rent payments, some utility payments, and the like. But the money for the next round, most of it's going to have to come from that package. But we have a whole team. In fact, we're hiring a full-time director just for the Detroit Means Business program right now to keep reaching out. And I hope those of you who have been engaged with some of those folks have seen the benefits. But we went to too much trouble to get these businesses open. They have them go back to plywood in front of storefronts in our neighborhood districts again. And we're going to do everything we can.
Great. So so one of the audience members wants to know, what does Mayor Duggan suggest people do for Halloween?
So I think if my kids were still of that age, I would be doing something in the backyard. I'd probably be dressed up in some kind of way, and I'd have my own stations and let the kids, they want to show off their costumes. And I'd keep it to our house. That would be my choice. If you really feel with your children you want to do more, I would either go to one of the trunk or treat sites at the police stations, which at least as of now, we're still planning to do it. If we get a big spike, we may cancel next week. But as of
Right.
today, it looks like we can do it. And what we're going to say is stay with your own family. Stay 6 feet away. Now, you know what it's like on these porches. The kids all go charging up together. You're going to have to keep the kids back, let the other folks get there. And we're asking, if you do pass out at your house, and I'm not encouraging you to, but if you do, don't be leaning over everybody's bag and throwing stuff in it. Put a table out in front, a card table or some kind of table. Keep the candies and packages spaced out so each child can come up, take something off the table, put it in their bag, and go without touching the other candy. And of course, you need to handle your candy with gloves. If you do those things, we'll be fine. These kinds of protections will be fine. Now, if 12 kids go up on the porch at once, if they all dig their hands into the candy bag, we're going to be talking about an outbreak in a week or 10 days. But if we do Halloween right, as of today, what Dr. Dunn and Denise Fair are saying is, I think we could be okay.
The numbers suggest really good news, Mayor Duggan, so that's really helpful. Another question is the city supplying additional PPE? And if so, where? So you talked a little bit about the businesses, but is there additional PPP that the city is providing?
So they just told me yesterday they were. So I'm going to see if I can pull up the website. But I think Detroit Means Business is the website.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can check right now so I don't give you bad information. But the Detroit Means Business, and there it is, DetroitMeansBusiness.org. If you go to the DetroitMeansBusiness.org website, that's run by the DEGC in partnership with a lot of the companies, and it tells you exactly how to get PPE. It tells you how to get loans and grants. It takes you through everything that's available. So all of the different philanthropic groups that have been helping, they've all come together under this Detroit Means Business brand. So you don't have to navigate 8 different locations. Just go to DetroitMeansBusiness.org and it's all there.
Great. Okay, a few more questions, and there's some questions that are coming in. People want to hear about Proposal N, but before you get there, and I don't know that you have the answer to this yet, but will Detroit host the Thanksgiving parade this year? How about the Christmas tree lighting?
So the Christmas tree lighting, I'm certain will be virtual. So what we're talking about in the Thanksgiving Day parade is a parade route that goes down the far south part of Woodward. There will be no audience allowed. So the sidewalks will be blocked off. There'll be no seats. We won't let you come down, but it's going to be broadcast. I'm pretty sure it's Channel 4, but it'll be broadcast live. And this is more technical probably than you want to know, but the marching bands are going to be filmed separately because we didn't want to have all those band members coming in one place. And we're going to splice in the marching bands into the floats on the video you see at home. So the answer is you'll sit at home, you'll watch the parade. It will look real to you. It'll have the backdrop of downtown because it's going from, I don't know, Mack to Jefferson, a much shorter version, but no audience. If you try to drive down, you will find the roads blocked and the streets blocked. So we can still celebrate the parade. Of course, we can't go over to the football game, so you don't have any reason to go down for that either. So stay home and watch on TV. And I think you'll see a lot of your traditional floats and the like.
Great. Will the city extend outdoor dining permits, close streets in some areas, and allow for canopies so that people can continue to support local restaurants and coffee shops? And is there funding for outdoor heaters? So that's a lot, but it's all.
So we're looking at that question right now. The answer is we'd love to extend outdoor. Here's your question. If you are outdoors, the canopy itself is fine, but if you drop those sides down and you enclose them, you actually have less air circulation than if you were inside the restaurant. So we're not going to have enclosed tent operations outside. Can you have on warmer days, it won't be December or January, but could we potentially have sometimes into the middle of November? Those are things we're looking at right now. But I think probably people are going to have to move back indoors, follow the 50% guidelines inside, unless they have something unique. If you can withstand the cold, it's okay with me, but we can't have those outdoor tents with the four sides enclosed. The air just doesn't circulate.
Okay, so I am getting barraged with proposal N. So I am going to, if you could share with us information and the voters information about proposal N.
So it's a fundamental question about what kind of city do we want. So if you go from 2000 to 2013, which is the year I got elected, that 13-year period, 250,000 people moved out of the city of Detroit. When we got slammed with the recession in 2009, 2010, people left in massive numbers. If you took the entire city of Dearborn and the entire city of Dearborn Heights, you've got about 160,000 people. If you can imagine them being totally gone in 13 years, it doesn't approach what we had. And so it's really been the defining characteristic of our community since then, is that we had people leave a whole lot of structurally sound houses when they were underwater on their mortgages. And if you had a $150,000 mortgage and you couldn't sell your house for $50,000, people left out of East English Village. They left out of Boston Edison. They just cleared out of these neighborhoods. And so we've gone at this hard. And in the last 6 years, we've knocked down 21,000 houses. We've also rehabbed 8,000. We sold 8,000 houses that were vacant to families that have fixed them up. And the people who bought them are 70% Detroiters. The great majority are renters who wanted to go back to being homeowners. So if you think about what we've done, we've taken 30,000 houses that were abandoned 6 years ago, and they're either gone or occupied today. We've got about 20,000 left. And the way the federal money worked, which I went up to Washington, D.C. repeatedly, lobbied President Obama and Congress to get that money, the $265 million that did that. It came with a law that said you can only demolish in federally approved zones, which were the most dense zones of the city. Mm-hmm. So basically, the vast majority of demolition occurred in neighborhoods that were 70% or more occupied. If you were in a neighborhood that's less than 70% occupied, you saw very little demolition. So here's our question. Do the people in those other neighborhoods deserve to be able to raise their children, their families in a blight-free neighborhood? Or should it only be the stronger neighborhoods? And so the last 20,000, we've got a lot of houses that we can renovate. So today, we know the land bank owns 8,000 vacant houses that can be renovated. And so what City Council said is, before we knock anything else down, let's save every house we can. And I thought they were right about that. And so the first thing we're going to do is take those 8,000 houses and secure them, clean them out, put the clear view, you've seen this, the really high definition plastic over the doors and windows, cover the holes in the roofs so that those 8,000 houses can be renovated. You can put in a furnace and the like. You don't have to worry that it's stolen because we've got the house secured. Then we have enough to knock down 8,000 more. And what we're going to do is we're going to knock down every house in the city this year. If the abandoned house is between two occupied houses. So we've got a couple of thousand abandoned houses that are literally between two occupied houses, which means two families go to bed every night wondering if that house next door is going to catch fire and spread to their house. And then we're going to knock down every other house that's next to an occupied house. That pretty much takes us through the next 8,000. And so our goal is 3 years from now, every salvageable house that's vacant has a family in it. And nobody lives next door to an abandoned house. And so the only way to do this is to sell bonds. We could sell $250 million bonds because our credit rating's been upgraded 7 times. We can sell $250 million worth of bonds without raising your taxes above what they are today. If we had sold any more than that, we would have had to raise taxes. And I didn't want any part of a tax increase. So that's how we sized this, was this is a level that all the financial experts have certified won't cause taxes to go up. And then the other thing is this, we want to employ Detroiters and we want Detroit companies to do the work. When we were operating under the federal rules say you can't give a local preference, that a federal tax dollar is the whole country's. You can't give preference to Detroiters. Because these will be Detroit bond proceeds, we are going to give preference in the bid process to if you're Detroit headquartered, if you have an office here, or if you've hired 51% Detroiters, you will get preference on all of the bids with those things. We're setting aside 30% of the bids only to small companies from Detroit who are overwhelmingly African-American. And we are requiring all of these contractors to hire 51% Detroiters. And for anybody who thinks you don't have qualified Detroiters, I don't know if you saw the announcement yesterday, but Fiat Chrysler has now hired 4,100 Detroiters for that new plant. And FCA is saying publicly, there's lots of talent in this city. And we are confident we can put that talent to city work to work renovating and knocking down the homes. So this is a decision of the people of the city. And to me, it's an equity question. The better neighborhoods have seen their property values double and triple in the last 5 or 6 years. The neighborhoods we couldn't spend the demo money in because of the federal rules, I think they deserve to raise their children blight-free too. And that's what I'm campaigning for.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for breaking that down. I think we have one other or maybe two other questions, and I'll jump in. So thank you also for always bringing up that lens around equity, because we know that is a powerful piece that particularly in this time that we have to be focused on. So the other one is we are marching towards our election. And we know that there have been not only ideas, but genuine threats. In fact, threats against our governor around
Right.
blocking and voting suppression. So when people think about going out to vote and the issue of safety, can you talk about in what ways that you want to ensure that your administration is, one, making sure that our ballots are safe, and also the whole question around what now we can think of as outside agitation, domestic terrorism. Can you speak about that, please?
So it's very much on my mind. We are extremely fortunate that we have an outstanding Attorney General, Dana Nessel, and an outstanding Secretary of State in Jocelyn Benson. And I have been working hand in glove with both of them, along with Chief Craig, on exactly these issues. So I hope that all of your listeners know we have 23 satellite voting locations open today at rec centers and churches and the like. I voted there. It's easy. It's like going into a polling place without the line. And we would encourage you, you can vote today. You can vote 7 days a week. They're open on Saturday and Sunday. Janice Winfrey has done a very nice job at getting these open. We've never had this in Detroit before on this kind of magnitude. So I would encourage you, vote today. If your ballot came in the mail, you can drop it off there, or you can drop it off at one of the designated drop boxes. I love the sticker. What you should not do is stick it in the mail, because at this point, I have no confidence that the post office is going to deliver your ballot by Election Day. And so if your ballot does come in the mail, drop it off at one of the drop boxes. If your ballot hasn't come, you can show up today at the satellite location and vote. And then when your ballot comes in the mail, you toss it out. You obviously can't vote twice, but nothing stops you from going to the satellite location and voting today. We think there will be about 300,000 people vote in the city of Detroit. That'll be a 40 or 50,000 increase over 4 years ago. Had we had that turnout 4 years ago, Michigan would have voted for a different candidate. Detroit has that much impact. But I think somewhere in the range of 180 to 200,000 people are going to vote by mail. That's a good thing. And the Secretary of State and the clerk and our folks have all worked together to make sure there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of vote counters, so the votes are counted on a timely basis. I'm really optimistic we're going to have a drama-free election day. The last question you asked comes down to safety on election day. And the Attorney General and I have spent a lot of time on this, along with the police chief. We've all met together. And Chief Craig is ready. You're not going to see police presence at the polls. We're not going to do that. We don't think that's necessary. Right. But the patrol cars will be out. And at the earliest signs of anybody standing in a way that would tend to impede voters, the Detroit police will come out and ask them to move. And if they don't, they will arrest them for loitering. And so the law says that you cannot be on a street or a sidewalk in a way that would tend to impede people from passing by. So whether you're looking in a threatening manner, whether you are openly displaying arms, whatever you might be doing, if it is tending to discourage people coming to the polls, the Detroit Police Department will ask you nicely, and then we'll move you out. And the Attorney General will be backing us in court on that. We are hand in glove together, and she's giving the same guidance across the state. And so the way we've broken it down is in Detroit, the Detroit Police and the Detroit Law Department are ready to go. In the rest of the state, it'll probably be the state police and the Attorney General, but we're going to be totally in sync in what we're doing.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I think that hopefully resolves the fears and concerns that people have. And that's exactly the kind of leadership that both our city deserves, and we're delighted to have come from you and your administration. Christine, do we have any other questions?
We do. There's a few that are coming in. Mayor Duggan, how do we make sure that businesses who do not have tax incentive subsidies and PPP continue to do business?
The vast majority of businesses in the city don't have tax incentives, but we have been making sure we facilitated the PPP program through the banks. That ultimately went very well. We're going to need another one. It's obvious by now this economy is not going to fully open up at least till March. If you just look, and I come out of the healthcare side, I follow this vaccine development, and it's going at record speed. Mm-hmm. But it looks like the vaccine that's going to be selected, you're going to have 2 injections 30 days apart. And so they've got to make it, they've got to get it out, they're going to give it to the healthcare workers first. I realistically think we're looking at March before we're really feeling safe. And so there's going to have to be a second round of PPP. There has to be. And that's why I'm so angry at the delay in Washington, because this is something that the Republicans and Democrats agree on, and yet they won't vote. And so we're gonna continue through the philanthropic efforts to get people grants and loans. But as fast as Congress ultimately acts, and I hope they still do make a deal this week, we will get the money out to our businesses.
And maybe Christine, while you're adding that one, so we have both our for-profit businesses, but your partner in taking care of the community are nonprofits. Right. And in fact, you've got 2 CEOs of nonprofits that are like you, working 14-hour days to make sure that our families and our communities have what they need. Do you anticipate that either through hopefully another CARES Act or the HEROES Act, or even working with philanthropy, that there'll be other resources that nonprofits might be able to tap into, as we know that the needs of our communities are doing nothing but increasing?
Yeah, and you qualified for PPP, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
the wonder of that was true back in the summer, but like businesses, we have the winter upon us.
But I thought that was something, we criticize Washington a lot. I thought that was something they did good. Yeah. Was making sure that nonprofits were covered as well, because you're major employers in this community and in this country. And so from my standpoint, you should be treated as private employers with the kind of assistance that we're giving out. And we'll be continuing to advocate for you. And it sounds like at your next meeting, you might want to bring Charity Dean or one of our folks from Detroit Means Business. If I had known you were going to be asking me this level of detail, I would have come better prepared on the ins and outs of it.
Oh, you've got it, you know it.
But Charity and those folks, although if you go to DetroitMeansBusiness.org, it's all there. But I'm on your side, and another round of support for our nonprofits. I think it's critical.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mayor, sometimes we can't predict what's coming through the chat. So I'm actually surprised at some of the level of detail as well. The last question that I think we have time for, because you've committed to being here for the next 2 minutes. Can the outdoor city projects continue in construction during the pandemic?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's specifically related to the Joe Louis Greenway and the West Riverfront Park, Hart Plaza, and 375 neighborhood development. So you think that will absolutely continue?
It will. So Dr. Rob Dunn, who is a huge factor in why we have the lowest infection rate, we opened up construction almost right away. And in all of our construction sites, whether it's the buildings that are being built, like the FCA plant and the train station, or whether it's the riverfront projects and the Greenway, they all have the same protocols. When you show up for work, you are asked a series of questions. You had your temperature taken. You've got PPE requirements if you're there. Now, if you're by yourself in an area, you can do it without the mask. If you're close to other workers, you're wearing the mask. And I am not aware of any spread of COVID on any of the construction sites. So in fact, if you drive around the city today, and I just did a presentation of the rating agencies. We got a great result 2 weeks ago from Moody's and Standard & Poor's.
Mhm.
There is more construction going on in the city of Detroit today than there's been in 50 years. I mean, go look at the Hudson site, go look at the construction that the Illiches are doing along Woodward. It's one project after another, housing projects across the city, the jails going up, and we just not had an issue. So Joe Louis Greenway is near and dear to my heart, and we're pushing forward on it.
Great. There are two other questions, but I know that we're out of time. So we'll make sure that we get that to your staff so that you can answer them or get them to the right. One of them, I think, specifically needs to go to Detroit Doing Business because it's about revenue, very specific question about revenue. So thank you so much. And it is actually really good to hear that the sacrifice that all of us have made in this moment has paid off. And the diligence of the city around making sure that we are healthy in this pandemic as much as we can be is really nice to hear that it's paying off and that we've got plans moving forward. So I'm going to turn this over to Jametta. I've got to get my kids back online school.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Mayor, for also letting the community know that we really have experts and they're working together. So unlike some of the chaos that we see in other states or other cities, you've named it from the partnership, certainly as you mentioned your background in health. We know that we are really blessed to have an outstanding leadership, both from the state right down to the city. So thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you'll come back with us soon, and we'll make sure that you have all the information for your team's eyes that you need to cross.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Keep safe and be strong. Thank you. And thank you, audience, for sticking with us. We want to make sure now that we've had an opportunity to hear from the mayor. We've heard him talk about a range of issues, but one of those that is part of our responsibility, which is to make a decision to vote on proposal in. And so we want to make sure that we have another opinion about that. And so with that, we're pleased to introduce Brandon Snyder. Brandon is the Executive Director of Detroit Action. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, folks. What up, though? So as mentioned, I'm Brandon Snyder, Executive Director of Detroit Action. We're a grassroots, member-led, community-based organization, building power for working class Black and brown folks here in Metro Detroit. So part of, my contribution to this conversation is to sort of offer a alternative perspective or a different perspective that's rooted in community and also articulates, some of the thoughts of why groups like ours at Detroit Action and homeowners and renters are unsure about Prop N and are, pushing folks to vote no. So, I just want to say just from a place of full transparency is that, I believe that there's some level of demolition and focus on blight is, necessary and useful. But, at its core, it's really just a tactic. It's not a strategy. It's not a vision of how we get to a better place. It's a tool that we use to get to a better place. And, you can't demolish your way into a more prosperous, equitable, peaceful Detroit. But unfortunately, like the mayor and the land bank, you know, traditionally just use that tactic and they overuse that tactic. You know, they focus on it because it creates, you know, a tangible result. You know, you can see a house being knocked down. But what Detroiters like myself and Detroiters that are members of Detroit Action don't see is like the development and like and focus on neighborhoods, making sure that they're more equitable, making sure that there's more affordable housing, making sure that we are renovating and doing something with dilapidated homes. And you know the strategy, but you know the tactic of just, you know, we're going to demolish our way through these neighborhoods, you know, is not a strategy for long-term improvement. You know, it's a strategy. A strategy is more complicated. You know, it requires a bottoms-up approach that is like rooted in community groups, in neighborhoods, and other stakeholders. And it has to be done with the emphasis on, you know, non-market community-based solutions. So it's not something that the mayor or Propin really focuses on. You know, so a really good example of that, if you are interested in like more thoughts and more opinions on like what does it mean to like get ourselves out of this situation around blight and like actually build towards a more prosperous neighborhood, you can see in my mentor and our board chair, actually our board secretary, Greg Marcus, and you wrote in the Journal for Urban Affairs a few months back about an article on future cities. So if you're interested in more thoughts around like what that looks like. But so I just want to like take a couple steps and just talk about like why we're no and why this is important in this moment. So the first part is like, this money is not free. Like, so the mayor said that this is not a tax increase. And, you know, that's just a sort of like, you know, it's just a sort of like play on words. Like taxpayers are still on the hook, you know, and if anything, property tax relief for middle class, low income homeowners is still in order. You know, folks still haven't been compensated for the $600 million that they were over assessed for this entire decade, nor have we figured out a way to redistribute that wealth back into the hands of working class folks. You know, it was actually unlawfully redistributed away from them into the hands of developers, contractors, the county, et cetera. You know, I think the other part that I want to like lift up is like when we talk about like this bond, like it's taxed that, or it's labeled at $250 million. But that's not even including the other part of the price tag. The other part of the price tag is the interest that we'll pay. The interest is about $240 million that we'll have to pay, and we'll be paying, you know, for years. And then finally, I just want to lift up like one other key important thing that we're thinking about at Detroit Action is that there had, you know, while we're talking about knocking down 8,000 homes and preserving 800,000 homes, you know, that's not necessarily, it really only applies to about 6,000 homes that we're going to preserve. The other 2,000, the Detroit Land Bank won't even touch because they believe they can sell them in year one. So they need to worry about slowing deterioration because they think they can produce sales really quickly. The real question is to whom? You know, the reason I'm voting no on one is because there are no new capital resources to ensure that Black and brown homeowners can buy any of those 8,000 homes that'll be preserved. You know, I'm not against homes being salvaged. I'm not against, you know, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not against development. I'm not against demolition. But, you know, there's actually no mechanism in place to make sure that the market forces won't push those 8,000 homes into the hands of developers and speculators. And if you put 8,000 homes in the market without access to capital for Black and brown working class folks, we know that they'll go to mostly white investors, mostly white speculators, folks who are trying to flip homes, who will get those homes over the people who are in these communities. And that's a driver of gentrification. And then just lastly, just before I close out, like when we do the math, you know, the city's talking about $15,000 per home to fix it. You know, that $15,000, if anybody who's done development knows, isn't going to be enough to actually, you know, refurbish, rehab, or demolish any home. You know, there's going to be overruns. There's going to be, you know, they're going to go over budget, and that increases the amount of how much they'll need to spend and like what it'll actually cost. So all of this fuzzy math, the fact that there isn't any consideration around like what does it do to environmental to protect neighbors, from lead remediation and other concerns, is why we're voting no and why we encourage other folks to think about it.
Brandon, thank you very much for breaking that out. You gave not only some succinct reasons, but you gave history and context, which is so important because so often when we vote, we don't have that larger picture. Also, I think that if you would put in the chat, you identified one of the folks that's on your board that has written an article about the state of cities and the differences. So we know that demolition is needed, but what does that mean for the ongoing growth and development and access to capital, as you said, particularly for what I'd like to say indigenous Detroiters and its impact in terms of breaking down structural racism. So thank you for putting that information to us. Thank you if you would put that information into the chat. And as always, we encourage our community. Knowledge is power. We've had an opportunity to hear from the mayor. We've also had an opportunity to hear from Brandon. There's more information, both obviously at the City of Detroit website. There's information from community action groups such as Brandon's, and we need you to take a look at it because this is our future and one of the elements of our future. So Brandon, thank you so very much. We appreciate it. Thank you for putting that in the chat.
Thank you so much, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. So we'll continue our theme of being informed so that we can be powerful. And that's so critical right now. We need to be talking about what are our voting rights. And we're really pleased to have the ACLU back in the house. And specifically, we have Marissa Kovac, who is the policy strategist, for the ACLU. Marissa, welcome. We'd like to have your comments, and then we'd like to have some questions before our next speaker.
Okay, certainly. Well, thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to spend my time talking about what your rights are so that you can make your voting plan between now and November 3rd. So I have some slides I'm going to share, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to go through all of the different various ways that you can take advantage of your right to vote between now and November 3rd. And going to give you the information that you need so that you can make a voting plan that works best for you on your time. So number one, make sure that you're registered to vote. And right now, from now until November 3rd, you can register to vote at your clerk's office, or if you're a Detroit resident, one of 23 satellite vote centers that are set up in the city. All you need to register to vote right now is proof of residency in some way. So a document that contains your name and your address. Electronic copies of that document are okay. And so some documents that are acceptable would be Michigan driver's license or personal ID card, a utility bill, a bank statement, a paycheck, or any other sort of government document. So once you're registered to vote, or once you've identified that you do need to go vote, I'm going to talk about 3 different convenient ways that you can vote this election season. So you can either vote early at your clerk's office, you can go to the polls on November 3rd and vote, or you can vote from home. So first, voting early at your clerk's office. Right from now until November 2nd at 4 p.m., every single currently registered voter can go and vote early right now at your clerk's office. Or you can vote early at one of those 23 satellite offices that are set up in Detroit. If you have photo ID, we encourage you to bring that, though it's not necessary. If you don't have photo ID, you can fill out an affidavit, and you can get your absentee ballot absentee ballot at the clerk's office or the satellite office, fill it out right there and turn it in right there. You can do that if you're currently registered from now up until the day before the election at 4 p.m. You can also vote at home and submit your ballot. So if you have already requested your absentee ballot or you have your absentee ballot, you can still fill that out and return it. We are urging you, if you have your ballot now or you're voting at home with your absentee ballot, please do not put that in the mail at this point. The mail, as as many of us know, has like slowed down quite a bit. And we really encourage you at this point, do not put your ballot in the mail. Drop it off at your city clerk's office, or again, one of those satellite offices, or drop it off at your city clerk's drop box. And there are 30 drop boxes stationed across the city of Detroit right now. One thing to note, if you are voting absentee, just make sure that you follow those instructions extra careful and that you sign your ballot to make sure that it's counted. You can also still vote at the polls on November 3rd. If you prefer to vote in person, we also have that right, and we're all going to be able to do that safely on Election Day. If you are a registered voter, you need to vote at your assigned polling location on Election Day. In a minute, I'll show you how you can find that out. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And if you're in line by 8 p.m. on Election Day, you have the right to vote. So if you're still in line at 8 p.m. when the polls close, don't leave that line. You still have the right to vote. That also goes for if you need to register to vote on Election Day at your clerk's office. If you are still in line by 8 p.m., stay in that line because you have a right to register and vote that day. Again, if you have a photo ID, bring that with you. But if you don't have it on you, you can sign a simple form and you still have a right to vote that day. Then finally, if you are an unregistered voter or you need to update your voter registration in some way and you find that out on Election Day, don't worry. You have the right to register or update your voter registration at your clerk's office on Election Day, and you can vote right there. So before I wrap up, I just want to show you some resources that you can go to after today so that you can get the information you need to really figure out this voting plan for you. So the first website I suggest everyone check out is michigan.gov/vote. This is especially helpful if you are going to vote at the polls because you can check your voter registration, you can confirm where your polling place is. You can view a sample ballot so you know what races are going to be on the ballot that you're handed that day. And you can also find out where your clerk's office is, what their phone number is, and what their hours are. We also recommend that you check out Michiganvoting.org. This is a website that was created, the ACLU created this in coalition with community groups, clerks, and other election officials to try to create a one-stop shop that had everything you needed in order to create your voting plan and know what your voting rights are. It also, beyond just information on how you can create your voting plan. It has information if you are unhoused, how you can vote, if you're a student, how you can vote, if you are a formerly incarcerated individual, how you can vote on Election Day. And finally, and then there's also DetroitVotes2020.org. This is a website that's specific to Detroit and has all of the information you need as Detroit residents to create your voting plan. I mentioned satellite offices. They have a map and the addresses of all of the satellite offices. If you need to register, get an absentee ballot, or go vote at one of those offices, you can find one that's close to home. You can also find the location of all of the Dropbox sites, as well as their hours of operation and contact information. And then finally, if after today you have any questions that you need answered or any concerns about voting in Michigan or Detroit, there is a nonpartisan election protection hotline that is staffed by attorneys and legal professionals that is there to help you. The phone number is 1-866-OUR-VOTE. There's also hotline representatives who are Spanish speaking, Arabic speaking, and then there is assistance in a number of other languages too. So between now and Election Day, if you have any concerns, any questions at all, you can contact this hotline and someone will be there to help you. With that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Christine, do we have any questions for Marissa?
We do not. And the one that I was going to ask, she answered, which was around if there is, if you have an issue when you go to the poll, what's the number you call to address it? We do have a question for Brandon, but he is no longer on. So I just for any, just a reminder that if we didn't answer your question, we will get the answer from folks, and keep your questions coming. You can text your questions to 313-288-2082. Again, that number is 313-288-2082. Or you can just put your questions or comments in the Facebook chat. Thank you so much, Marissa. Jametta?
Yes, thank you. And now we're shifting to our other critical voice that is about keeping us healthy and safe through this pandemic. And so very, very pleased to welcome to the program, Dr. Herman Gray. Many of you may know Dr. Gray. Certainly he is one of our top docs in the state, if not even nationally. His leadership has been known as the CEO of previously of Children's Hospital. He is the chair of the Wayne State University's Department of Pediatrics, and really very excited because he and his leadership has moved it forward that we now have an urban children's health collaborative. So Dr. Gray, we are so delighted to have you to come to the program. Certainly we have thousands of families that have questions around the validity of immunizations, vaccinations. You heard the questions around staying safe for Halloween, but we'd love to hear your perspective about the importance of staying connected to our health provider system and what we need to do to keep our children and families safe. Dr. Gray, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jametta, and hello to everyone participating. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon and to participate in the panelists. And it's also nice to look at the screen and see familiar names and faces. So thanks so much. You know, as Jametta suggested, I'm an old geezer. I'm sorry, not an old geezer. I've been privileged to serve in healthcare for a long time, and especially on behalf of kids and families in Detroit, you know, virtually my entire professional career in a variety of capacities. And therefore, I suppose I've also been able to witness and to work firsthand on the consequences of a healthcare delivery system that does not always serve people of color or poor people, or particularly Black people, very well. I agree with the mayor who just a little while said that as we look at how Detroiters have done during this pandemic, we actually are doing quite well, and I'm really proud of how our people are doing here in one of America's great cities. But certainly we have both historical and current reasons to be suspect of a healthcare delivery system that should be caring for us, but sometimes doesn't seem to care. There are, of course, as with everything, there are more people who are good and who are trying and who are working on their implicit bias, and places who invest tremendous resources and are working really hard to give you the best that they can give you. I'm certainly not suggesting that is not the case, but I am talking about how you might view this system, from a 30,000 foot view systemically, and the impact of systemic racism on that system, like all other aspects of our lives. Having said that, and while working for equity and working to fix our broken healthcare delivery system and social service systems that result in health disparities amongst Black and brown people especially, we, on the other hand, must take advantage of every good thing that is available to us, find the good places that work well for us, and to take the best care that we can of ourselves and of our children. It doesn't do much good to say, well, I don't, I don't trust those folks, so I'm just not going to go to the doctor. That's not really hurting anybody except for you and your loved ones. We deserve nothing less than the best healthcare that we can get for ourselves, and not working with that system penalizes us further and really does not advance our interests or our children's interests. So with the remaining minutes that I have, I'd like to encourage you and remind you of the things that you can do to keep your children and your families as healthy as possible. It is no secret to anyone that we are living through a historic, once in a century global pandemic. This pandemic, while dangerous and life-threatening, and certainly we Detroiters have seen that back in March, April, it can be managed when we act to protect ourselves. This is not the time to grow weary, although we are all weary. We have to work through it. We have to push through it. It is not the time to stop taking precautions. Unless you're tired of living, this is not the time to just sort of give up all the things that we've been doing so well up to this point, most of us. As a pediatrician, I would encourage you to teach your children, encourage your children, and all members of your family of the importance of the things that we hear frequently, of course. Wearing face masks, social distancing as much as possible, frequent hand washing. These are simple measures, but they work. And we've seen them work well right here in Detroit. During this unprecedented time, many people have stopped going to the doctor's office or to a clinic for well child visits, for well visits, for checkups, for vaccines, for immunizations. The need for these visits hasn't gone away simply because we are in the midst of a pandemic. Quite frankly, it's just the opposite. People are dying of chronic conditions that if they had gone to visit a doctor might have been identified and appropriate intervention delivered, but they were too afraid to leave their homes. And so in the midst of this pandemic, preventive measures such as flu vaccines, childhood vaccines and immunizations, checkups are still critical to all of our health. If you don't trust your doctor's office, as an example, to be safe, ask yourself, well, why not? Why do you think it's not safe? If you think that you have a really good reason for being concerned about going to your specific doctor's office, or you just are simply afraid, call the office. Ask them what they're doing to protect themselves and those who come into their offices. Obviously, people are going to act in their own self-interest. They're not going to have an office that is, at least not intentionally, dangerous to others. They're going to try to protect themselves because they would like to go home to their families at the end of a workday as well. Still, if you don't like the answers that you're hearing, find somewhere else that you feel more comfortable with. Don't just decide to not take advantage of these potentially life-saving preventive measures. The flu, it's here now. The flu is real. The flu has always been real. The combination of the flu and COVID-19 together at the same time is a potentially lethal combination. A simple flu shot decreases your risk of getting the flu significantly. This is important every year. We give the same message, public health professionals give the same message every year. It is especially important today. Get your flu shot. Get your kids' flu shots if they are at least 6 months of age and over before the end of October, as the flu starts to grow in intensity in the coming weeks. Get that flu shot in the next 2 weeks, if at all possible. What else can we do? What else can we do for our kids in particular? Stay active, get outside, let those kids run, play, dance, exercise, move. By the way, not a bad advice for grown-ups too. Adults work for a living and they work for their jobs. That's a big part of what adults do. Children play. That's their job. That's how they learn to socialize. That's how they interact. That's how they discover their own physical potential. That's how they, figure out, jumping in a hole that deep really wasn't a great idea. We are feeling particularly stressed out and anxious right now. Fight the stress, fight the anxiety. Your children experience it as well. They pick up on your cues. So you exercise. Talk to your kids in age-appropriate ways about how they are feeling. Listen to them, particularly, is important. Listen to what their concerns are. They may be real or they may sound nonsensical, but they're their concerns. They're not your concerns, they're their concerns. Listen to them. Kids sometimes hear things on TV or social media that they don't understand, and then they create their own false realities. Quite frankly, there's a fair number of adults who are doing that these days as well. Don't overwhelm your children with the TV news or social media stories, particularly about death and illness. Turn off the TV for a while. Shut off your device for a while. If you think that you or one of your children need mental health care, don't be afraid to ask for it. We have a stigma at times in our community that that's a sign of weakness or there's something really seriously wrong with you. Your brain is as much a part of your body as your heart and your liver and your gallbladder. You don't worry about getting a gallbladder taken out if it's giving you a stomach ache. Don't worry if your head is giving you your problems to have somebody care for it with you. The importance of talking to others, asking your doctor, asking friends, asking colleagues how to find help is terribly important. None of these things are controversial and they may seem simple, but the good news is because they are simple, they also work. Some physician clinics or offices, have this kind of support right in their offices, or they know how to access it. Wayne Pediatrics, the new practice that we just started at the Wayne State for Kids, has a full-time social worker, full-time dietitian, and a psychologist available on site. We're at 400 MAC, and our phone is 313-448-9600. We're happy to see children and their families. Other things that can help with managing stress and closing.
Dr. Gray, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I have to jump in right here. This is one of the hardest things to do. And I don't mind sharing my biases. I would love for you to be able to continue. What I'm hoping, we do have some questions, and we're kind of running up on time. And I really would like for you to know that we'd like to have you come back, particularly as we talk about the intersection between physical health and mental health. And this is a huge issue for our kids and our families. Christine, please, some questions. If we had
Yep. I'm just going to ask one question. So, and we would really love if you could come back next week, because the information that you just gave, the permission that you gave all of us to both live in the moment, but also, care for ourselves in this moment and take a break was incredibly helpful. So the one question is, if our children are sick and the viruses are going around, right? Cold, flu. And if they have some symptoms that are similar to COVID, but how do we know whether we should get them tested? When should we be concerned? Because if you're not asymptomatic, does that mean that you should still get tested? Do you have any direction around that?
Yeah, this is a really fabulous question. It's a really difficult question. And there is no simple answer to that. I gave all my simple stuff already.
Got it.
This one is a little bit more challenging. Some of the obvious things would be, certainly if you have been, or your child has recently been around people who are not in your family and in your immediate circle, and then they get ill shortly thereafter, within days, typically, and maybe as long as 2 weeks after, you should have a heightened sense of suspicion about what the risk is. It's really hard to sort out some of the symptoms of just a typical cold, upper respiratory infection, influenza, and COVID-19, and particularly in children. Adults will have a little bit more of the classic symptoms of loss of taste or smell, the body aches and fatigue, just run down. Kids, you may not see that classic sort of description. As a matter of fact, it's likely that you won't. And so, parents often hate this answer, but part of the answer, I think, is get on the phone and call your trusted healthcare provider, and together talk through it and figure out whether they want to see you or not. I would strongly advise people not to just walk into the doctor's office if they think their child has COVID. Whether they do or they don't, it will send the office into a frenzy of trying to protect those that are there, providers and consumers, and it will be not received well, likely by the office itself. And so if you think this is a concern, you really do need to call first, not just to get advice as to whether you should go, but to give them a heads up that you're on your way there.
Thank you so much. Jametta?
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Gray. We will be
It's my
back
pleasure.
in touch. The steadiness, and by the way, maybe this, it's not that you've been around forever, you're seasoned. At least that's my line, seasoned.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, and speaking of seasoning, in our next segment, we're preparing now. I didn't even think about that. This is our segue, talking about being seasoned, that we are delighted to have a cooking segment by La Terraza, and that's going to be Celia Garcia. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Israel, and she is,
Celia Garcia.
we are from La Terraza, and we are part of this important Hispanic community in Detroit, offering you a restaurant, a space to have fun at this time, and share part of our culture and from our country, all delicious dishes we have over here from us. These Pacific specialties are those dishes we have over here. We inviting you guys to come in and check out, and anytime we open business, try to attract more people to get in the area involving the Southwest Detroit and Mexican town. As on the Dia de los Muertos, inviting you. That's part of the EB and the Southwest Business Association. We are involving them, and them are part of me honoring Diego Rivera in this part of Detroit.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Pues estamos aquí muy felices de saludarlos y presentarles lo que viene siendo La Terraza y ofrecerles este espacio para sus eventos, o para que vengan en familia o con sus amistades a degustar nuestros platillos. La Terraza se caracteriza por ser un restaurante mexicano, pero más sin embargo somos 100% latinos y abrigamos acá.
So they're saying thank you for coming or for being with them today. We're here in La Terraza. They're here to cater all your needs and parties, family events, and even like business events or fundraisers in their space.
Es una casa que somos favoritos de todas las naciones, tenemos toda Latinoamérica, tenemos clientes de Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, Colombia, Venezuela. Aquí nos encanta celebrar nuestra hispanidad y disfrutarnos unos a otros.
So here, even though it's Mexican food, we don't just cater to the Mexican community. We have all of our Latin Hispanic community come here. We have clients from Puerto Rico, from Venezuela, from Honduras that come and enjoy their food and their music here. And we're open and we love all our Hispanic cultures.
Estamos invitándolos y estamos muy contentos de ser parte de su programa. Gracias por tomarnos en cuenta. Estamos con las puertas abiertas para recibirlos en cualquier momento.
So we would like to thank you for having us in your program today. We're here expressing our gratitude and that we're here in the community and open doors for everybody who'd like to come in and enjoy some food with us.
Well, that was really very difficult because a lot of us are starving. You showed us some food. Your business looks so welcoming. I think all of the COVID313 coalition on this call would love to be able to support you, as we want to support, in particular, Black and Brown businesses all throughout the city of Detroit. Thank you so much. We've had a packed program, and I'm joyful about all of it, and happy now to turn it over to Christine as we begin to close the time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jametta, and thank you, La Terraza, for being here today. I was going to ask you to show the dish one more time because it's not only food, but it was like a work of art. Their food is delicious and their space is really wonderful. So if you have an opportunity, go check them out. Okay, it is time to wrap up our town hall. We want to thank all of our panelists for being here today. And we also want to thank each one of you for being here today. Again, if we didn't answer your question, we will get the answer to you and we will post them next week on onedetroitpbs.org and on DPTV's Facebook page. If you'd like regular updates, please fill out the form in the chat, or you can put your email or phone number in the chat, or you can text us that information at 313-288-2082. Again, that number is 288-2082. We have a few things that we want to ask you to do before you all head out. Please visit Detroitvotes2020.org and get registered. Get yourself registered and get to one of Detroit's early voting sites, and or send in your absentee ballot. And I think the advice that Mayor Duggan gave about mailing your ballot is a good one. So please visit those early voting sites. You can track your ballot at ballotpower.org. Attend Freaking Vote Friday next week at Butzel Family Center. Take a listen, and then take a listen to the podcast that we're dropping in the chat right now about Proposal N. This town hall is truly a group effort. So before we go, I'd like all of our partners to turn on their videos. And we want to remind everybody to stay healthy, stay powerful, stay strong, and vote. Christina, can you please say that in Spanish?
Sí, me pide que lo haga en español. Manténganse fuertes, manténganse saludables y voten. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace and power, folks.